We docked alongside in Corinth, which is against the advice of navionics. But we did that because it was calm weather, and it was forecasted to be calm weather. But this was before I learned that in the Bay of Corinth, the weather forecast is almost always wrong. And the reason for that is geography, because of the mountain range that's there. But I did not know that at the moment. And so it was actually calm. There was no wind, but we were getting like a gnarly swell.
All right, now come back and get on.
But now we need to leave immediately because the wind is now blowing us onto the dock quite viciously. And if the weather picks up even more, it's going to become almost impossible to get off of the dock, and then we're just going to have to deal with getting battered. It's time to go. Slammed into the dock. I had to kick it into reverse and give it like full throttle in reverse to keep the bow from hitting. Now the wind's blowing us back onto the dock, and so now I need to go forward and then inch our way out. All of that would have been avoided had we medboard, but we didn't, because the dinghy was on the back. That was the beginning of learning that the weather forecasts in the Bay of Corinth are not accurate, pretty much at all. Before we really get into this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you get notified about new videos like this one. We were then headed to the northern side of the Bay of Corinth because we want to go to Alexi so that we can go up to Delphi. Delphi is an ancient Greek site that is one of the most highly recommended in Greece, and so really wanted to sail to Delphi. If you only have a small amount of information, you think something is simple. I mean, that spans every single domain. It's like, oh, sailing's simple? You know, you just set this, and then you get into it and you're like, oh, this is very complex. And you can think about that with anything. It's kind of a trick the mind plays on itself because, I mean, you can see it very apparently when you speak to somebody that speaks a different language than you. They speak to you with the vocabulary of maybe a first grader. That immediately translates into your mind that they have the intelligence of a first grader, when that is obviously not true. And it's very easy to override that whenever it comes to interacting with a person because they probably speak more of my language than I speak of their language because I can't even have this conversation at that level in their language. We assume others are ignorant because we're actually the ones that are ignorant. We were originally planning on staying here another night, but since it's windy out, we're gonna sail 18 miles. So we'll give this a shot. We're going completely not off of weather forecasts, solely on what we are experiencing in the here and now. So we'll see what happens. Forecast is no wind, but we're feeling wind. Delphi was developed all the way back in the 8th century BC, so almost 3,000 years ago, as a religious sanctuary for the Greek god Apollo. People traveled from far and wide to consult the Oracle of Delphi and the priestess Pythia. They were both very famous for being able to divine the future, and Delphi was also where they homed the Pythian Games, which was the most important games in Greece, second only to the Olympic Games. It's so easy and natural to look at ancient peoples in people from a very long time ago and think that they were significantly different than us, or think that they were dumb and archaic, right? It's so obvious when it happens to us what's happening. Oh, they think I'm dumb because they don't know anything about me. But then we do that to other people and other cultures and ancient civilizations, and we don't realize it. It's like we don't actually know what went on there. Like, we have a kind of a general idea maybe about what was happening there, but the day-to-day, what individuals' experience was there, it's like we don't have any idea what that was like. We have a list of semi-objective facts about what happened there. We don't have any understanding of what it would have felt like to be there. The only difference between them and us, they were born back then instead of now. It's like they had the same brain structure. They had the same mental capacity, possibly even more, if you think about how our memories have been diluted by outsourcing them to technology. We dock alongside because that's the only spot open. It's wintertime, so I did not expect there to be a lot of boats. A sailor comes over and talks to us, and he's like, "Hey man, that's not a good spot to stay." I'm like, "I know, but what else are we gonna do?" He's like, "Just around this peninsula, there's this tiny little breaker for small fishing boats. You can anchor behind that. It's really shallow, but you can anchor there." And so we go over there, and we drop the anchor, and it's literally like 2 meters deep there. That breaker is absorbing the vast majority of the swell, and so it makes it manageable. And we're pointed right into any of the swell that is coming, so it's just an up and down motion instead of a side to side motion. That wind is like that for another day. So we hang out there on anchor for a whole nother day. The wind has died now, which is nice. It's only blowing maybe 10, 12 knots and gusting up at like 16, 17, so that's much better. We hear these words: oracle, sacrifice, temple, spiritual, sacred. We automatically filter them through our 21st century worldview and come to a conclusion about what that meant because of our childhood, in our background, in our experience on the planet. I don't know how the Oracle of Delphi got her job, but however she got her job, I would assume that she had a reputation of being accurate, or at least of being helpful. And it makes you wonder, like, with those forecasts, were they accurate, or was it more a situation in which they told somebody what would happen and then that ended up happening because that's all the person was focused on? Maybe they did have some sort of divine connection and could actually read the future or something, who knows, or maybe they were just guessing. Whatever the case, they had a good enough record that people came from all over the place to listen to them. I mean, now we think that's so crazy, but it's like, who knows, maybe that person just studied a lot, and by aspect of having so many different people visit them, that they actually had like a really good perspective on like how people act and what would actually happen, and maybe they were really wise because of that. I think it's very foolish to think that the ancient Greeks were naive because they went and consulted a person as an oracle. It's like, first of all, I mean, we basically do the same thing with Google. We just don't think of it in that way. And so they didn't have the technology that we have. And so since we have the internet, obviously it's silly to go consult one person for everything that you're gonna do. But before the internet, I mean, that's basically what you would do. You'd go ask your parents, your grandparents, an elder, somebody, you know, a mentor or something like that for advice for what to do. And you wouldn't necessarily think of it as consulting an oracle, but you were still asking basically the same questions. Hey, this is my situation. What should I do? You know, even if the oracle couldn't read the future, right? Maybe they were just a mirror. Maybe they were just so highly attuned to psychological phenomena that they could actually bounce things back to people, and then people could figure out and make their own decisions, right? Like, sometimes what you need is just for somebody to listen to you, and maybe that's all that person was doing. Maybe it was just a therapist, basically, just the most skilled. It would have been so amazing to see Delphi in its heyday, when all those buildings were absolutely pristine and everybody was coming, you know, people were making pilgrimages. They're worshiping and sacrificing to Apollo. People are coming to talk to the oracle, and then it's just surrounded by elite athletes in the mountains of Greece. Would be an epic spot to be. It's basically a place where everybody was working to improve, like either their physical body or their mental well-being or their spiritual well-being. I mean, there's not very many places like that on the planet today where you go there and everybody there is working to improve something. I mean, I think ancient cultures specifically, we think that they were simple and we think that we understand how they operated. All we have is what's left, and what's left is stone. 3,000 years from now, like what's going to be left of our current civilization? Almost nothing. Almost nothing. It's funny, we think that they were ignorant because we're ignorant of what they knew.